Well, welcome to another episode of Interesting People, Irrelevant Conversation. My name is Tara. I am so excited that you guys are going to get to hang out today with my friend Karlee Smart. We actually met each other a while ago, but had a lot of these mutual connections, which I didn't realize when we first met, which was kind of cool. So we actually met through the Moms of Business group. And Sarah Williams, I think, was my second or third guest ever on our podcast. So that was kind of how we initially got connected. But you'll learn Karlee is part of the kind of pageant world. And I don't know if we'll end up talking about that or not. But then we found out we had all of these mutual friends within the pageant world, which was really cool. So I have no idea what her question is going to be today. Just to get to know her a little bit, she's a two-time Mrs. New Jersey, a national pageant champion. So if you have strong opinions about pageants, I don't know, maybe we'll talk about them or not. That'll be interesting. She, though, is a force to be reckoned with in both modeling and the real estate industries because she's a top performing sales agent and she takes kind of this expertise, but also this very unstoppable drive for success. She's a mom, she's a wife, but she's also a huge advocate for military service members and veterans. And she really uses her voice and her platform to help inspire others and empower a change and honor those who served. And so these are all things that obviously super align with the values that I have. And so she might see her making headlines, negotiating deals, standing up for a cause, but she's definitely a leader who has confidence, passion, purpose. So I'm excited for us to have our conversation today. We actually hung out recently, and I think we ended up spending like 3 or 4 hours just talking about random crap. I don't even know what we were talking about. And I was
Everything.
like, how did this day go by so fast? So I feel like it was a great conversation. So this is going to be a great one too. So let's go ahead and share our screen and let's kind of pull up and see what question is going to pop up. So here we go. Are you guys ready? I shuffled this a few times before we got started, so we're just going to go ahead and spin our wheel. Again, if you have a great question that you would love to see on the wheel, drop that in the comment or submit that to us through the website. Maybe your question will get chosen. And so this is from Lisa Michelle Smith, my beautiful friend Lisa Michelle Smith. And her random question is, what is the best advice you got that you wish you had taken, but you didn't? Okay, what's the best advice you got you wish you had taken? Like, that was really good advice, but I didn't take that advice.
Well, I want to say it comes from my mom. I'm finally starting to take the advice, and it's control the controllables and F the rest. I really, really never could understand that when I was younger and even growing up and starting a family. But now that I am a little bit older and my mom unfortunately is no longer with us, I channel her telling me that all the time. It's so much easier said than done, but I'm going to say that's the best advice that I wish I had taken. Actually, I wish I had taken it sooner.
So why didn't you take it?
I think I just allowed everything to take control and not learn how to. I just didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to forget the rest and not realize that certain actions that are not my own are uncontrollable. I can't control anyone else's actions. And it really was just something that I had to learn so much harder than just listening to the words that she would say.
So, okay, so this is curious. So I love this because I have a little bit of a control. I actually wish I had it with me. So we both have a mutual friend, Lainey, and she has Veruca Style, and she was actually a guest on the podcast. And I have this mug that I got from her store, and on one side it says, "I'm not a control freak," and then you turn the mug around, and on the other side it says, "But can I show you the right way to do that?"
Guilty.
Yeah.
Guilty. I
So-
literally the other day unloaded my dishwasher to reload it. I'm like, who did this? Like, why can't we just put it in so all the dishes get washed?
Okay, so I did not know that this is a thing, but I really think it is. So I got married really young and openly, if anybody knows the story of my marriage, there was only one person loading and reloading the dishwasher. It was me. So this was never anything that occurred to me, right? And then I remember a friend of mine saying she had gotten remarried like in her 30s, late 30s, and how they had to come to an understanding that he would not touch the dishwasher. Like he just couldn't load it in a way that she could sleep with. She was like, I don't understand why is this man who has like literally an Ivy League degree can't load a dishwasher? And so she said, I just told him don't touch the dishwasher. It aggravates me. And I thought, well, that's just so bizarre, right? That's so crazy. And then Jack and I have this issue. And every time I load the dishwasher, he's like, "You did not do this right." And I'm thinking, I did this right. Now, I will say, and I hope he can't hear me, 99.9% of the time he's right, which is really irritating. But I just think, well, if the dish doesn't get clean, I'm just going to run the dishwasher again. Who cares? And then sometimes he's like, "Can I show you why that's not the way to put the dish in?" And I'm thinking, not if you want to live. Like, why would you do that? Right. But apparently, and so I'm curious, like, is this a universal couple issue with the dishwasher?
Blaming my son on this one because it was all him. My son was supposed to do it, and he just threw it in. So I think
Mm,
it's an issue of people not really caring. Hey, well, I loaded the dishwasher. Doesn't matter. It's going to get clean in the machine, right?
that's how I am.
But if you want to try to uh, fit everything in the dishwasher that needs to get cleaned and lessen how many times you're running it, I don't know. I
So
mean,
it's not
I'm
your
not.
husband, it's your son.
He's so my husband will do things and I just will leave it, but at least he actually makes it so it will be washed. Like if a cup is this way, how is it going to get clean? It needs to be like face down. So I don't know. I think it's the
Yeah.
kids.
Okay,
But
a kid's
it is
I could
partly my
get.
husband too, but I'm not as overly obsessed with fixing it when he does it. I think I've trained him a little bit better.
Okay, so what was the breaking point then where you were like, "Okay, my mom said I should let go of the stuff that I can't control, but I can't." And then you had I mean, it sounds like you had a turning point where all of a sudden you were like, "Oh, I kinda get my mom was right." And I hope my daughter's listening to this because your mom was right.
Moms
Um,
are always right.
yeah. What was the turning point for you? Where like what did something happen? Was there an aha? Like what made you shift?
So a lot of it really suffers. I suffer from anxiety. I do a lot of holistic. Well, like I focus on a lot of holistic methods to try to combat it. And honestly, it really is like not having her anymore
Mhm.
that kind of enabled me to listen to her, if that makes any sense. Because I don't have her telling me that all the time. She's not chirping in my ear. Well, Carlee, it doesn't matter. Just control the controllables. You can't control it. And I think now that I know that she's not with me, I kind of it like when you lose a parent at like a young like she was young, she was 66. When you lose a parent unexpectedly, you don't realize that like things don't really matter. You know, the last time I saw my mom was she was at my house and I was giving her a hug. So that's the last time like I
Mm.
and it's nice too because every single one of my like both my sisters and everyone in my family, the last time with except my dad, last time they all saw my mom was a hug. So in my mind, like little things like, okay, well, the dishwasher wasn't loaded. Who gives a crap? Obviously, it'll flare you up later on, but in even in bigger things, well, you can't control the way things are happening in the world. You can't control politics. You can't control what people say about you. You can't control what happens in the real estate market or in pageantry. It doesn't only what you can do is what number one, how you react to things. And I think now that, like, again, going back to my mom, circling back to the fact that she's not here, certain things really don't matter anymore. And I think that was the
Wow,
aha moment for me.
that kind of loss.
Yeah.
I would say that when I was going through Emily's cancer and I was really committed to doing a gratitude journal every night and I was really in that space, that was an easier place for me to be. And I thought my whole life I'll kind of stay in this place of where you're in such a gratitude and the little things don't matter, right? And I've just full transparency, which is sad to say. I think the further and further I've gotten out of that, the more I've reported back to what I would almost consider like the normal, right? Where those things do and that perspective, like you lose that perspective over time. And I think it's sad that sometimes something really, traumatic needs to happen for us to have perspective.
Yeah. And I think the key right there that you said is just shifting your perspective. You know, like like the mug, I am that person. I created a real estate journal in the sense that, like, I have my planner, I have what's going on with all of the kids and their activities, my activities, what my husband's doing, but I have one just for real estate. And every day I start out with affirmations. I write out my to do list. I also write out what I'm grateful for, and then I can focus on my schedule. And it helps release all of the extra, like as a mom, there's 20 million things in your brain going at one time.
Mhm.
And when one of those things start to fall, you're like, oh crap, how do I do all this? So when, like, I'm big into writing, I'm a former teacher. I was in the classroom for 15 years, and get it out of your brain. You're more likely to remember things when it's written down. So I think like having those journals or having like writing down what you're grateful for every single day. I swear it's February 4th. I'm starting the year like I have 4 closed transactions. I just got a contract, and it's like barely into the year. And I'm about to go on a listing appointment this week. Like it's all from that clarifying and just writing it down. What are you grateful for? And I'm sitting here with my crystals. I'm like attracting, or actually I'm repelling things. Like I'm very much in tune now. And I think even more without having my mom and having that shift in perspective of, okay, well, this is what's going to make me feel better. So I'm going to focus on all that.
So when did you start this practice of like writing everything down in the morning and dumping everything out of your brain and everything?
So I always had a planner, always. I'm a paper planner to the T. People are like, why don't you put it on your phone? Like I'll have meetings on my phone if it's a Zoom, but I don't work that way. So it years of a planner. The gratitude I tried to get into not too long ago, and I actually would do it in an exercise in one of my classrooms for my leadership class when I was teaching that. It never stuck for me. It wasn't until I actually made my own planner this year that I'm sticking to it. So I made a quarterly real estate planner. I designed it from cover to cover myself on Canva and put in there what I like, what I feel like I need. I already have some tweaks that I'll make for the next quarter. That's the control in me. And honestly, I'm new to it. So it's only February. It's
Wow.
February, and
Okay.
I'm
So,
just using it.
so are you selling this planner?
You know what? You're not the first person to ask me about that. I think I need to like polish it up, like perfect. Again, control the controllables. I am a perfectionist. So once I jazz it up, I might put it out into the universe for people to have.
Okay. So if
Um,
you're listening and you want a copy of this, let's encourage her along and put a comment and be like, hey, make this available to me. Um, and here's the thing, you can always put something out and then put out an updated version and
yeah.
then put out 3.0. Do you know what I mean? And particularly as people use it or maybe give you feedback, that might even also go into it. So I get that you want it to be great, but here's what I would think is that if it's helping you already and you're seeing a difference, and guys, I think
Mhm.
this is true for all of us. Like I truly believe that we all are here because we have gifts and purpose, and there's something that we're here to better the world with our existence, right? So if this is something that's already made a difference to you by not making it available to other people, by waiting until it's perfect, you are literally taking that gift away from other people to have the same experience that you're having. So
Good
just something
point.
to think
Good point.
about.
Good point.
You
I mean,
know?
I've shared it with my office.
Yeah. So
But no, I think I do. And it's funny. I actually want to turn it into a pageant planner too. Uh, Going into pageantry, like there's coaches, and I've had my own like coaches and whatnot, but there's so many more pieces of preparing for a pageant that I think if I just make some tweaks and make it more aligned with pageantry and the mission behind like someone's platform and platform development, it would also help in that aspect too. So I think what I created, I think is a good tool, and I definitely do need to share it.
yes, I think you do. We need to talk more about that, about you getting this published, getting this out there. And now with like something, depending on how you want to publish it, but even something, if you didn't want it to be bound, you could even do like a Kindle Direct if you wanted it to have and
Great
just,
idea.
put it up as a Kindle Direct. And then there's no, the binding is a little bit different. But I think that why not? Right? Why not put that out there or make a printable that people could print it and then they could take it to their local, copy place and have it bound if they really wanted. Maybe there's two options.
Yeah.
But yeah. And for people who are watching, I think that's true. Like people come up with these really great ideas or they're doing these things that benefit them and they think we come up with all these excuses in our head about why I can't make this a product for somebody else. Why can't I, oh, I could never figure out how to sell that online or oh, I couldn't figure out how to market. Like, yes, you can. You can
Mhm.
figure it out. Other people are doing it. You are just as smart, right? I don't know if you guys are on TikTok. I follow Amalfi Jets on TikTok. Now, I'm just saying this is going to be, he needs a reality series. He really does. The guy who owns it is called, his name is Colin. He's the funniest. These are, if you're not on TikTok, like this is reality TV on TikTok. So basically, they are a private jet company for people who have like, money to burn and they want to fly private. And they do these basically you're listening in on phone calls, which I'm sure they're reenactments, right? Like I'm sure they're not the real phone calls, but reenactments of some of the most
Mhm.
crazy calls that they get from these people. And his whole thing is like the customer's always right. So if somebody's like I just watched one yesterday and the person called and he's like, so I need a big jet for my 5 friends or 10 friends, but the friends were imaginary. Like they were imaginary friends. And he's like totally on a straight face, like, okay, we can do this for you. Yeah, I get that. I see why you would need a large jet. Like, I see it's like catering to like children. But these children are spending, like, these are adults who are like, oh, yeah, $36,000 for a one-way ticket from here to there. And all I'm thinking to myself as I listen to these, and I'm totally addicted. I'm addicted. Somebody needs to make him a reality show. It would be the only reality show that I would currently watch. It's fantastic. But I think to myself, if these people have $150,000 to spend on a plane, or some of them are like 500,000 to spend on a
Yeah.
plane, why am I not a billionaire? Because they are so dumb. Right?
I question it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm
And
like,
then I go, okay, so there's something else there. And my friend Corey Michelle, who was my first guest on this, she would say that there's something else. It's not about working harder. It's not about working. It's that there's something energetically that is in a field or not in a field, right? Because
mhm.
I do not believe that it's just that the smartest people have the most money. I do not believe that. And if you listen to their TikTok, you will not believe that either.
They'll be like smart in other ways. Like you might not be the most educated or have the most degrees, but you got to have some sort of street smart.
I'm
I
like, I
don't
don't know,
know.
were all these people trust fund babies? Like, was I just born the wrong, like, I don't know. So it's funny. If you are on TikTok, you should go follow them because it is my enjoyment. Like I don't like a lot of the negativity. I don't like a lot of the stuff that's like that. But this is just so funny because you can just see the level of customer service of being
Mhm.
like, sure, we can totally give you seats for your imaginary friends. you know, it's really,
I'll be
really
a
good.
friend.
Yeah. So let's talk more about pageantry because, well, I think I've shared with you that when my daughter first wanted to get into pageantry, I was totally against it. I was like, it objectifies women. This is horrible. This is everything that I am not for. And then I had a client who had put herself through college doing pageants. And so she was like, Tara, I'm going to really challenge you on your preconceived ideas. And we sat down and she connected me with the pageant director, Evelyn, who
Mhm.
who was just, I put my daughter in the system with her and I just saw how much she poured into these young girls. And it was about building their confidence. And when I say I was wrong on like a deep level wrong.
Yeah.
I admit that I was wrong. uh, like all the things that I thought were just not true. But what made you get into pageants? And did you have those ideas like that it was just this objectifying of women?
No,
Or
no.
like what
So
was your
when I was little, I used to sit and watch Miss Universe with my mom. So it was really like just having that relationship and seeing these insanely, incredibly talented women, whether it was at Miss Universe in their costumes or watching Miss America and them like tapping and dancing along the way. And I would always be like, Mom, I don't have a talent. She's like, well, if you had a pool, we'd put it on there. I used to be a swimmer. So
aw.
I was always like, well, I can never do Miss America. But so when I was in college, I competed for Miss New Jersey,
Oh,
USA.
I didn't know that when you were in
Yep. So
college.
I competed
Oh.
for them. I did train a little bit, but I did not win the title. Totally fine. It wasn't my path. But I did win the interview award. So that means like I was the next step of actually placing. Um, I was not in the right, I don't want to say headspace because I wasn't necessarily mature enough to try to do it again. I was dedicated, but I wasn't necessarily that dedicated. Like I was practicing, but not as much as I should have been. Um, so I kind of just let that dream go aside. And then then I had my daughter and got married and was like, oh shit, well, I'll never be able to, I just cursed. I'll
Yeah.
never be able to compete because you can't be married and you can't have a kid. So I'm like, well, my passion career is officially over. And then I found as I got older, Mrs. Pageantry. And I started off with a system called the New Jersey International System. I had a local title. I was Mrs. Monmouth County International. And the reason why I did it was because I wanted to A, prove to myself that I could do it,
Mm.
B, check off the box that, well, before I turn 40, let's see what happens. And just like, follow my dreams. Like it's something that I wanted to do as a child, but I never really had the courage to actually follow those dreams. So I had the local title for a year. I signed up the day after the pageant, and I ended up winning my state. So really the first time competing as a Mrs. So I won the state. And
Wow.
then I had that title for a full year. And then I was Mrs. New Jersey Earth USA. And I had that full title for a year. And then I won the national title. I was Mrs. USA Earth Eco, which turned into the elemental system. So it's all just a little system change, name change. And through that, I like opened insane doors. I got into modeling because of it. I got my daughter into pageantry because of it. And I met some of my best friends because of pageantry. So to your point before, it really gives you so much confidence. It's allowed me to have a voice. It's allowed me to use my passion and have a springboard for my platform. And that's assisting our military veterans, but also their families. I've connected with dozens of organizations and connected with thousands of veterans across the nation and really mostly in the tri-state area. But I'm blown away by what one pageant journey has brought me to.
Hmm. So, what would you say to somebody who's like, well, okay, let me ask you this. Who do you think is like the ideal person? So, I'm just thinking about like if somebody's listening, who's the ideal person to say, okay, maybe I should like look into this? Because I think a lot of women, particularly, once they go into we all do, right? You get into mom mode, you get into your kids, it becomes all about your kids. And I do
Yeah.
think there's a point where you start to lose yourself a little bit in that you're now this mom, right?
Yeah.
And I will say this with Emily having gone off to college now, it's this weird year of like, well, who am I if I'm not taking care of a person full time? Right. And I was somebody who always worked. So I can't even imagine a mom who had been, working. And I don't think that stay at home moms don't work, but do you know, like I had something outside of
Yeah.
being a mom. I can't imagine somebody whose full time job has been to be a mom to then be like, what do I do now? Right. Like that
Yeah.
empty nest syndrome, I think is a real thing that we don't really talk about or give women enough support. Like I'm like, there needs to be a support group for parents when their kids go to college, right? So I do feel like there's probably a lot of people who are listening who are like, yeah, I can relate to that. Like I would like something for myself. But I think there's also an idea of like, well, it's easy for you to do that. You're like 6'7" and you are a size -2 and you're beautiful. And so, I could never do that. What would you say to that person?
So there are as many pageant systems as there are types of cars. There's literally a pageant for everyone. You have going all the way up from like below preteen if you wanted to get your little one into it. You have different age groups, even like women in their 50s compete, 60s compete. So age is not even a deterrent anymore. Height's not a deterrent. There's a petite pageant. There's a curve pageant. There's even there's a pageant specifically for African American women. There's pageants for body types like Cosmos, like you compete based on physical fitness.
Hmm.
So it really just depends on what your passion is. So number one, I would say, don't say you can't do it because there's something for everyone to compete. There's big systems, there's small circuit systems. If you don't want to go to a national pageant, which is a lot of work, you could do that as well. There's so many different types. So number one, you can do that. The other thing is, what are you passionate about? A pageant, most of them will have a platform. And for me, like I said, it's military and veterans. My husband's a Navy vet. He served 2 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. His fleet was the first fleet after 9/11 to get deployed.
Oh,
And
wow.
unfortunately, he came home with the silent wounds of battle. And it was a struggle getting service for him and getting a disability rating for him. But even it was hard on the spouse, hard as a mom, hard on my children. And I wanted to help families like my own. So I had a passion. And that's where I came up with my platform. It's called Silent Patriots. And I basically connect veterans and service members, even active members, to different organizations to provide aid and assistance. So you want to have some sort of platform. For you, Tara, it could be, childhood cancer and being a mom. That, how do you care for that? My daughter, I got her into pageantry. Hers is literacy. She likes to read books. Like, the kid is up in her room, always reading a book. If I don't know what she's doing, she's reading a book. Anything. Your platform doesn't have to be like something like mine that was like, oh, my husband was a veteran and he served in 2 tours. It doesn't matter. It could be anything that your heart desires. So having that passion, I think, is key. And then the last component really is like, do you actually want to do it? It takes a lot of time. It's a lot of time, competing for it, preparing for it, making sure that you're ready. You have your wardrobe all together. And with that being said, it costs a lot of money. Not some systems cost more, some systems cost less. So you're going to want to find sponsors. And then, do you have the time to do it? So I wouldn't discourage anyone to not do one. I highly recommend finding a system that's meant for you, and, speak to the girls that are in the system. You just go, like, do a Google search and then figure out what pageants align with you, and then reach out to their title holders or former title holders on Instagram. And most of them will respond to you, and go from there. Like, if it's something that you've been really wanting to do, no one can tell you not to do it. I say, go for it. No, never did I think, I'm married, 40 with 2 children, I'd be walking on a pageant stage in a bikini. Did I have to do that? No, it was an optional competition. It was fitness for me. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to show everyone, you don't have to have like a 6-pack ab, and you don't have to be like Giselle Bundchen walking down a Victoria's Secret runway. Like, yes, I'm tall and skinny, but I have my little like things that I'm worried about too. There's something for everyone.
So as she's talking, I know if you're listening to this, I literally just like flipped the microphone and grabbed it with a face of fear. And I thought, yes, this is totally pageant like, right? This is what we're afraid of. Like, I'm going to fall on stage and trip. I think it's kind of cool too, is that you don't necessarily need to have a talent. Some of the pageants don't have a talent. Some do have a talent. There's quite a few that don't have any kind of swimsuit, because let me tell you guys, I would not be walking on a stage in a swimsuit. So I do like that there is a place for everybody. And I think the big thing I have learned is that if you have a cause that's important to you, this is a great way to get a platform and to get your voice heard and to have that leverage. I will also say that everyone we met, and I know every system is a little bit different, so you do need to get to know the girls who are in the system, the women who are in the system, but for the ones that my daughter was involved in and the people that I've met, they were the most lovely, generous, kind people, women. And I think I had this stereotype of these kind of catty, oh my gosh, this is not an environment I would want my daughter in. And I'm not, obviously, I've limited experience. So there may be experiences that people have had that was their experience in those systems. But like you said, there's so many. And that wasn't mine. I found that the women were just wonderful, and they were really pouring into my daughter. And I will say the other thing that I think, particularly because so many young girls are being influenced by social media in a very bad way, that I appreciated her being influenced by these strong-voiced, successful, confident women. Like, who do you want your daughter to be around?
100%. 100%.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, and TikTok is not really where I want her to get her influence.
Yeah. And I said it before, I've met my best friends from pageantry. It's, yes, you're going to get those bad apples that will ruin it. And that's everywhere. Any career, any place you are, there's always one negative Nancy. But for the most part, the women you encounter are unbelievable. So like, my daughter competed, and her missus is fantastic. You're actually going to be speaking with her at the Self-Care Social in February.
Yeah.
Salon.
Oh yeah, I love her. I was so excited to see her on the flyer. Yeah. So we're doing a Self-Care Social local here in New Jersey, and I'm on the panel for that. Oh yes, she's wonderful.
So Salon was her missus. I'm like, I couldn't have asked for a better mom, like missus for her. And what's so sweet is like, her daughter is basically my daughter. I'm like, how's my pageant daughter doing? Like, aww. And Gloria is her pageant daughter. Like, you develop these bonds that are unbelievable. And it's always like, the smiles on everyone's faces, the excitement to see people, like, especially, I have friends that are across the country, and I never get to see them. So it's like every once in a while, I'm like, oh my gosh, how are you doing? Like, I love seeing them all succeed and do amazing things. And I'm like cheering on the sidelines. But like when you actually get to see your friends in person for like the longest time, you're like, oh, you're just ecstatic. Like I was just in DC, and one of my pageant sisters was like, hey, if you need a place to warm up, my door's open. She saw a
Oh,
post that I was there, and she's like, I'm here if you want to connect. I couldn't, but the fact that she took the time out to reach out to me and say something, and it's so magical, these relationships you end up forming and developing, and you really don't know what doors are going to open for you. Like for me, it got me into modeling. For my daughter, it took her out of being like introverted, and now she's got a little bit more speaking ability, and you just grow all around with it.
yeah, that was what I saw, was that the Evelyn was very invested in building confidence in these young girls, because Emily was in middle school when she did it. And so just the confidence of speaking, like they brought in somebody from Toastmasters who helped them. How do you speak? And how do you, those are life skills that I think are great. So,
Right.
I think television shows like, what is it? Toddlers and Tiaras, like they do you dirty because,
Yeah.
so this is funny. So not funny. Okay. Let me preface. This is not funny. This is funny now. I was sitting in the parents lounge. So when Emily had cancer, the hospitals usually have like a parents lounge, right? And so it's just like your reprieve to get out of the hospital room, have coffee. That was where I developed my coffee addiction, because there was a coffee maker there. I never drank coffee before that. And there's usually a parents refrigerator. And so we would sit there sometimes at night, you're with the other parents, like just trying to hold on to like a thread of sanity. And there's a TV in there. And I remember we were sitting there, like, four moms and we were literally watching, I think it was Toddlers and Tiaras. It was one of those pageant shows. And there was this mom. This is so funny. I'm just remembering this now. And I really remember this. There was this mom, and she's crying on the show, crying about, she's got like a 3-year-old in a pageant, about how this is the hardest thing a parent could go through. And I remember watching this woman sob about how this is the hardest thing. And all of us, like, nobody said anything. We just literally all turned and looked at each other like, what the F is she talking about? Like,
Yeah.
and we started with perspective. And let me say that was perspective, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I had all of this in my head. And it's a good life lesson, right? Like things happen. We have small introductions or small pieces of things, and then we create these huge stories in our head about what this means. And sometimes those stories are inaccurate, right?
Yeah.
So it was really great. So that was what was interesting. So Karlee and I, we met through this moms of business group, but then found out we had all these pageant connections, which is kind of cool. And
Yeah.
I do think there's a study, and I have been talking about it. It came out like maybe 2 years ago or something, that women over 35 are lonelier than ever.
Mm.
And that yeah, I believe that as women, biologically, we are really meant to be in community together and to not be alone. If you think about, we raised our children in villages together, there was this very communal feeling about it, more so than men. And so it's like almost against our biology to not be doing life with other people. And I do think that something like pageantry or wherever it is that you find your place gives
Right.
you a community.
It definitely is. It really is. It's just like it sounds corny, but it really is a sisterhood.
Mhm.
Like they're not my competitors. They're my pageant sisters, and that I think is the big difference.
That's so interesting. So, as we kind of, we've been talking for a while about pageantry. I just want to go back to the control thing really quick. So, the advice you would wish you'd followed, which we started with, was, let go of the controllables. What are
Mhm.
some of the things that you find now that, and I'm laughing that this was your question, because you don't know this. I'm in this. I got a grant for this program. It's called Personal Positive Intelligence, and so it's for coaches. You have to be a coach, and they work with you, and it's to develop your skills so that you can help other people. And they have these
Awesome.
idea of, you have these sage skills, which are, and I'm new in the program, so I'm not teaching anybody anything. I'm just telling you, it's like you have these sage skills, which is when you're kind of like in your best flow, you're in your best version of yourself, you're non-reactive, you're coming from a place of, light, love, trust, all those yummy things, right? And then you have what they call your saboteurs. And these are the things that in your brain, your self-talk, that work against you. So you take a test, like, what are your saboteurs? And what's
Mm.
interesting, and I'm actually really learning a lot. I can't say this is new information about myself, but the way that they tweak it is very fascinating about why you are the way that you are.
Mm.
And It's your strength. Whatever you're really good at is usually also your saboteur. And so my number one is hyperachiever. You have to achieve, you have to be number one, you play to win. And those are really good strengths, right? That's what makes me good. But that's also my saboteur. That's one of the reasons why you're always looking for that next high. You're never satisfied. You can't be happy. If you're not winning, you're not playing. Like, so and how do you use it with it to be a strength, but not to be working against you? And there's different saboteurs. But my second one is control. And this feeling of, and he gets into like why we develop these in childhood, and we develop them because of what we experienced as children. And we learned to survive, quote, in the world by utilizing our gifts, but then like they almost become hyper turned on, and then they start to sabotage us later in life. And he has a book. So if anybody's interested, I can put the book, I'll put the book in, I'll write myself a note. I'll put the book in the show notes. So it's really actually very, very good. I'm learning a lot. So this control one is the idea that when you didn't feel like you had control when you were little, or if other people controlled you too much, that then you kind of start to exhibit this control, and that you think, oh, this is helpful because I'm in charge, but that it actually propels people away, and you get less, people are less likely to work with you and things like that if they can feel like you're controlling you. So then it's funny. Literally, we were talking about this last night in my session because we have to meet once a week. And now this was your question today. I'm like, okay, the universe is really like Tara. So
Definitely.
like it's showing up. So what are some ways that you feel like you have, and this is for me to learn, some ways that you have let go of control and aren't you, where you are just controlling the controllables and not trying to control the uncontrollables? Like, how is that in a very tangible way showed up in your life? How do you use that? And then what has been the result of that?
Okay. Well, I think a lot of my control stems from like my career, really.
Hmm.
I was in the classroom for 15 years. I had to be in control of my classroom. I had to make sure I knew what was going on and I was prepared. And I literally would freak out. So this is before I had a classroom with computers, and then before we really allowed kids to bring computers, or it was like a thing. So I would I literally would plan a skeleton plan a month in advance because I'd had to book library time in order to get the computers. When something that came out of unexpected, it would throw me for a tizzy, like truly a tizzy. Cause then I was like, oh my God, I have this and I have this. I already planned everything. Like, I'm not kidding. I plan a month for my lesson plans. It's not normal, but I planned a month. And it would actually eat me up in not even just in that situation, but it would cause anxiety for me. And it was almost I guess now that I'm like talking it out loud, it was almost like a self-inflicted anxiety because it really didn't matter. Like, I can move things around. And it wasn't until like I don't even know when that clicked in my brain either, because it took a very long time for me to be able to just go with the flow. I'm not a go with the flow kind of person. Funny enough, I am in a way that, like, for example, in college, I did we studied abroad, and I was in Florence, and we out of nowhere we're like, all right, well, we're going to Greece for spring break. Nothing was planned. So I can go with the flow, but like when it comes to my work and my career, I can't. So
This is
like
probably why we're friends. Legit. This is why
probably.
we're friends.
Well, and
Neither one
it's
of
so
us
funny.
slow.
Even just today, like I was like, all right, I'll be in my office and I'll have this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, the office, it's booked. And I'm having technical issues and this. And I'm like, you know what? Forget it. We're going home and we're making it work. Like, I wouldn't have been able to handle that years ago, but now
Hmm.
I can. So it is what it is. So I've actually taken what my mom had said, and I just took the words out of my mouth. It is what it is. I can't control it, but I'm going to make it work anyway. So you might see my cat like up and down the
I
stairs. I'm
did
like,
see the
oh,
cat.
well,
It was
my
cute.
little rescue kitten. Like, it is what it is. Like, I can't control the fact that the conference room was booked solid and that I didn't have another place to sit and interview you with. And like, especially now that I'm out of the classroom and I am in real estate, like, I can't control when my client wants to see something. I can
Mhm.
book time when I plan on doing showings, but it's not always going to work that way. Like, this weekend, I had all intentions of like decompressing. No, I was out showings and writing up contracts. Like, I'm now in a career that I can't control everything. So I've taken what my mom taught me and I'm really just turning it into, it is what it is. and we're going to make it happen. And part of like the control for me, I don't know if it stems from being bullied as a child. Like I was very badly bullied. I had great, I have or had great parents, like nothing on that matter, but I wasn't treated very nicely as
Mm.
a kid. And
Like
now
in
I'm like,
school?
oh, I was horrible at school. Like I would literally have a chocolate milk and I'd go to the nurse. I have a stomach ache. I want to go home. Like I I would take my dad's like he's 6'3", and I would take his extra large shirts and I would wear them to school to hide how skinny I was. Like
Aw.
it was really bad as a kid. And I'm actually grateful that I didn't grow up the way that our kids are growing up with 24/7 access to social media, because I don't think I would be able to handle it. Like in all honesty, I would have been, it's very dark as I say this out loud. I probably would have been suicidal as a kid.
Hmm.
Like that's how bad it was. But that, I think, I wanted to always control myself. And it took me a long time to be like, well, you know what? If you don't like me, it is what it is. Like the fact, like I said
Mm.
before, I'm walking on a stage in a bikini. I don't really give a damn what you think. I don't really care if you don't like my dress. I don't care if you don't like my platform. Like this is me and this is who I'm going to be. So it takes time. Like I'm going to be 42 this year, and I'm still learning. So it definitely takes time for you to overcome those obstacles, but that's what makes you stronger. That's what makes you more resilient. And you don't learn from things until you go through it and you fail. So I think, like, going back to your initial question, it's just a matter of learning that it's a learning curve, learning how to overcome those obstacles and those, like, whether it's controlling or whether it's perfection, you have to slowly undo it. It's not going to happen overnight. Like, oh, I'm not going to be a perfectionist. Like, I have a newsletter that I give to my clients every week, and it took me a while to be like, well, it is what it is when I send it out. And same thing with, I create a magazine. I started publishing a magazine for my clients, and well, I don't necessarily like the way it is, but it's perfect in someone else's eyes. But you sometimes just have to let go of it, and it's
Yeah.
not easy. It's not easy.
I don't know if that's just something we all, and I'm curious for people watching, like, do we all just get to an age where all of a sudden we're just like, I'm just tired of trying to look like I have it all together? And I think that was a big part of this podcast. It was like everything I was doing was business and value and showing up and making sure that, and I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm tired of talking about that. Like, I don't think particularly, I don't know if it's because of social media or what else, but maybe it's always been this way, but I just
Mhm.
don't think there's enough transparency of like, life is really challenging sometimes. Sometimes it
Yeah.
literally feels like a dumpster fire. Sometimes I'm like a total mess up as a parent. Sometimes I handle something hang up and then question all my stuff. I just had this Sunday. I went to one of my best friends is having a baby shower, and I'm kind of a chatty Cathy, and I sometimes judge myself for that because other people have judged that, right? And I found myself, I'm gonna get like sad. It's supposed to be a fun show. I saw myself leaving the baby shower and on the way home, almost beating myself up of like, well, you said that and you shouldn't have talked about that. And maybe she didn't want to talk about that and you shouldn't have brought that up. And like, and then I'm doing this positive intelligence thing. And I had to be like, okay, stop. You're judging yourself. And I'm like, and then I'm in my head, like, maybe she's not going to be friends with you anymore because of how you are. Like, it is wild to me that we do these things. And I feel like I'm
Mhm.
somebody who's pretty self-aware, right?
Yeah.
And it was almost like watching myself just being like, why do you do this?
Yeah.
Right. And I think I do it less. Like you do get to a point where you just get older, or at least I can say I was doing it and I was able to stop myself and just be like, you know what? This is who you are. Whatever anybody else thought, that's like really not your business, type thing.
Mhm.
But it's sad that we have to get to an older age to have that gift. Like, I wish I had had that gift when I was younger. I think how different my life would have been. Right?
You do get old
Like,
as you grow. You get wiser, and
it's like the cruel gift of life. Like, you have to like be old to get that gift.
well, it's funny. One of my best friends from college, I'm like, oh, I normally don't care. I'm like, oh, I'm in my 40s, and she's like, shut up. I'm an actress. You're not supposed to tell anyone your age. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, my best friend
But
has done
you
that.
know what? It's kind of like you do get wiser as you get older, because like I said before, it's a learning curve. You have to fall on your face. Like it's going to happen, and
Yeah.
you only get better and you only get stronger as you make mistakes in life. And there are times where I should have put my foot in my mouth and not said anything. And there are times where like, why didn't I say anything? Like you can't like regret that and get in your head about like, oh, I should have done this or should have done that. Like, cause then you could literally turn yourself inward and have an anxiety panic attack. Like,
I was thinking that. I'm like, I could do an entire TikTok of just like, this is how I would have liked to handle this situation. Right.
yeah,
And just
yeah.
relive all the times I should have said this differently, handled this differently. I saw a fun quote because when my hair go gray, and I went gray before COVID. So I know after that, a lot of people kind of jumped on that bandwagon, but this was a couple of years before that. And it was a wild experience because I don't think it was quite as accepted back before the pandemic. Now I feel like people have embraced that a little bit more.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of interesting judgment during that time. But somebody told me, oh, it's not gray hair, it's wisdom highlights.
All right. Well, when they
I
come
was
out, I'm
like,
plucking them out.
yeah, I
So
was like, wow, I am very wise then. I will take my wisdom highlights. And anytime anybody says anything about age, I'm like, dude, I think my hair precedes me. Like once you let your hair go gray.
yeah, well, you know what's funny, and honestly, I'll probably end up doing what you're doing and what you did. My mom did it too. It was beautiful. Like it came in at like very subtly, and then salt and peppered, and then over time it became more gray. But I'm actually so thankful. Like I know people that are gray in their 20s. I'm like, I don't have that problem. Like
Yeah, I
like
was.
yes, they're starting to come
Yeah.
in. I literally am plucking them out. I know you're not supposed to, but I'm not like
I don't know. Is that an old wives' tale? They say like if you pluck one out, two more grow in. I feel like is that really true? I'm not
I don't
sure I
know.
believe
I'm still
that.
doing it anyway. I don't care.
If I plucked mine, I'd be bald, but I got my first gray hair prom weekend, literally my prom weekend. I think I was 18 years old. And then by the time I was 29, I was like dyeing my hair on the regular.
Mm,
So, yeah, so it was a long time. I tried actually when I was 35, I tried to let it go gray. That was really bad. People were horrific to me. They were so mean. Um, and it was so bad that I put again, this is why I don't know why we listen to other people. I put henna in my hair thinking, okay, well, I'll just kind of help smooth out the transition. And the
mm.
first time it was fine. And the second time it looked like my hair had been set on fire. It was so bad. My hairdresser was like, I don't know if we can save your hair. And the only way to fix it literally was to just dye back over it. And at that point, I was like, "Ugh, forget it. I'm just going to go back to dyeing it." And then I think I was 42. I think I was 41 or 42. I want to say 42. And I woke up and I remember it was my birthday. And I thought, I have no idea what I look like. Like I had been dyeing my hair for so many years, always shades of brown, but various shades of brown. And I was like, I absolutely have no idea what I, Tara, at 42 look like. And so it was just kind of like the social experiment of like, I'm just going to grow it
Mhm.
out and see what I look like. Maybe I'll like it. Maybe I won't. I figured, and it was wild because people had so many opinions on it. But I thought, well, if I don't like it, I can just dye it back. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't permanent. It wasn't a tattoo, right?
Yeah.
Like I was like, it's not a really that big of a deal. Um, but that was my thought. I thought, I just want to see what I look like. I don't know what I look like. And that was really the reason. And I at 35, the reason I stopped was because it was Emily was done with her cancer treatment and I was her only parent. And every time I would get my hair dyed, I would think, oh my gosh, if this is seeping into my brain and I get brain cancer and I die, she has no parent. And I have an obligation to stay alive. So that was my
Mhm.
initial reason. Um,
Yeah.
and then I guess I was just like, all right, whatever. And then at 42, I was like, I need to know what I look like. So I don't know. I mean, and I will still say I'm not. I was talking to a friend who's known me since I was young and we used to go clubbing together. And he was like, you would look a lot younger if you would dye your hair back. And I was like, I probably would, but that just feels like a lot of work. And I'm like, I'm just not at that. And then he said to me, I know it's your signature look now. And I was like, it's not really. Like, I don't feel that way about it. I said, and I'm not saying that I would never dye it back. There may be a day I wake up and I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of this. I want to dye it back again. I said, so I'm not really committed. I'm not like sand in the line, like everybody needs to do this and this is the better thing to
Yeah.
do. It's just right now I'm at a place where I'm like, I don't want to take the time and the money to dye it. That's really what it is. Like if I could just wake up
It's
and it was, but I'm like, that's not really where my priorities are right now. So who knows? Maybe it'll
yeah.
change.
I mean, I love it, and I love that you do it because I think
Mm,
you do look fabulous, and like it just like makes me as like when it does start turning, it's not like I'm blessed. Luckily, like that's a good gene that my mom gave me. She gave me some bad genes, unfortunately, but that's a good gene she gave me, and I like it does cost a lot of money. I was getting highlights. I'm like, what am I doing this for? I don't have any reason to get highlights. Why am I sitting at the salon spending all of this money? I really don't have the money and I really didn't have the time. So I
Yeah.
kind of like it's just a little bit left, but
Yeah, that was a big part of it. I added up how much time and how much money I was spending, and I was like, I can go on a vacation and get like a month back of my life.
seriously, seriously.
But I'm not about like, and people are like, this is not about being crunchy. I mean, you can clearly see my lashes are not like real. Like, I'll put on fake lashes every day. Somebody messaged me today. She goes, I don't mean to be like, maybe this, you could tell she was like, she's a good friend of mine. She's like, I don't know if this is like mean to ask or rude, and I don't want to assume, but your pictures look really good. Do you use a filter? I messaged her back and I was like, hell yes on everything. I am filtered everywhere. AI some places. I was like, and I feel no shame in my game. I said, because you know what? When you see celebrities or you see people on TV, they're all filtered too. So I said to her, I'm not going to show up as a normal looking person when nobody else in the world is.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get it. Unless you're like
So,
a real estate agent and you don't look like your picture whatsoever.
well, yeah,
Although, like,
hopefully nobody ever looks at me and goes like, "Oh, I didn't know that like you're way uglier than I thought." So I try not to use anything that's like super super not like what would look
yeah,
like me. I just want it to look like me on the very best day as if I had my perfect makeup done, right?
yeah. Well, what's funny is my real estate photo is actually my first pageant photo. So my handle, like, I'm Mrs. New Jersey Sells Homes. That's my thing. Like, I don't show up to appointments all the time in full pageant face. Like half
Yeah.
the time, like this is a lot of makeup for me today. I just because I'm like, oh, I'll dress up nice for Tara's podcast, but like because I actually put like eye stuff on. But I like being in like on the stage and having to wear all of that makeup a lot. Like often when you go to
Mhm.
appearances, I'm now like I don't want to do it. I don't want to put more makeup on my face. So
Yeah.
I might be like catfishing people, like, oh, you think you're gonna work with this beauty queen, and then all of a sudden I show up and I'm like minimal makeup on.
Oh my gosh, have you seen that trend? We'll finish up, but have you seen that trend on TikTok? And it's to a song like Lockjaw or something, and it's this unrecognizable makeup trend. So the idea is that you show yourself without makeup, and of course, people try to put like their worst version of themselves, like right, the
Yeah.
worst version, and then it's this trending song, and it's like Lockjaw. You guys know what I'm talking about if you're on TikTok, and it's like
I
then
don't.
they
I'm
turn
not on TikTok.
around and they're this like completely different person because of their makeup, and it's the idea of like how unrecognizable can you go from like your before and after. And I'm thinking, oh my lord, we are scaring them. We are scaring these men. Makeup sales are going to go down because they're going to be like, I am never dating a woman who wears makeup again, because she's literally a different person once she takes that makeup off. I'm like, women, this is not, you think this is all great, this is not working to your
Not.
advantage. It's kind of like when I was online dating and people would always put like their best photos online. And I'm like, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do your best photo. And then you show up and the guy's like, oh, she doesn't look at all like what I thought she looked like.
Yeah.
You want it to be like you're good enough that people are going to want to swipe on you, but not your best. So that when you show up, he's like, oh my gosh, this is a catch, even better than what I thought. Right. Like, I'm not a dating expert, but I am a marketing expert. So I'm like, this is some marketing, people. Like,
Oh,
how
it's
are you
my
marketing yourself?
my husband's not even like I was just in a photo shoot. I was actually a bride, and
I
I'm like,
saw your
honey,
photos.
yeah, I'm like, honey, you want to see my pictures? And I like came home. I have all this makeup on. And he's like, he could care. He actually likes me better with none of my makeup on. So like, thank you so much.
See, that's what you need. A man who likes you better with none of your makeup on. I'm not sure that anybody feels that way about me, but I'm okay.
Okay.
At least my lashes. I'm like, I'm not going anywhere without lashes. But thank you so much for being on. And so, guys, if this is the first time that you're listening to us, every week we spin a wheel. It has an irrelevant question. Conversations are all over the place because we have no idea what's going to pop up. If you'd love to submit a question, that would be awesome. You can send that in. You can submit that through the contact form on our website or pop it in wherever you're listening to this in the notes. We will add your question to the wheel. If you love us, it definitely helps if you subscribe and leave a review. That just helps with the ranking. If you don't love us, don't worry. You don't have to ever listen to us again. You don't have to do any of those things. I'm cool with that too. But thank you. And I appreciate you being here and going all the way home to get better sound and lighting and all of that. So
And I'm
I
sorry for
really
my
appreciate
cat.
it. No, your cat is cute. Totally, totally all good. And we will see you guys next week because remember, life is worth laughing at. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.